All right, welcome to Sekhet-Maat Oasis, Qabalah 101. I'm Frater Audeo, and this is Soror Luz-y. And do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law. Love it.
All right.
Yep, that's my job.
It is.
Thank you for joining us at Sekhet-Maat Oasis. And this is a free class offered by our local body, and a suggested donation of $10 could be helpful to help continue our events and classes for the future in our future temple space. We're just trying to keep things going. You can visit our website at www.pdxoto.org to donate. If you really like our content and are fans of Qabalah, hit the subscribe and like button. You can ring the little bell for notifications. We upload content every week.
All right. And also it will be to go towards air purifiers perhaps in our near future. So
for our in-person possible masses.
At some point. That was brought up during our visit. It's a great idea. Also, another disclaimer as we're into the disclaimers. I may pronounce things differently than you pronounce them. I may use correspondences that you don't agree with. We'll just have to be okay with that. It's an old language. No one's really completely clear on the pronunciation of a lot of Hebrew. And I'll say it how I say it. And if it offends you, I guess it's your will, but not mine. So hopefully you don't. And I'm glad everybody's here. And if you're watching on YouTube, stick around.
Welcome.
And welcome. All right, Geburah. So the scary side of the tree of life, not really scary, but it is the more aggressive, the more, it is the severity. It's where the title of the pillar of severity kind of gets its name. It's the fifth path, or the radical intelligence. And this is Westcott's translation of the 32 Paths of Wisdom. The fifth path is called the radical intelligence because it resembles the unity, uniting itself to the Binah, or intelligence, which emanates from the primordial depths of wisdom or Chokmah. And then you have Kaplan, the more scholarly translation. Westcott was a Golden Dawn adept. Kaplan is a Hebrew scholar, a rabbi, I believe. He calls it the rooted consciousness, Sekhet-Maat. It is called this because it is the essence of the homogeneous unity. It is united in the essence of understanding, which emanates from the domain of the original wisdom. And so if you read both of those, there's always going to be keywords in order to get you to a level of understanding of what these kind of statements are trying to get you to pay attention to. So both of them have the word unity in it. One has understanding and wisdom, and the other one just uses its traditional name of Binah. Binah translates to understanding on the tree of life. So you're looking at Kether, Chokmah, and Binah, and then you would have Chesed, and then Geburah would be the next one down. And it's talking about where that fire comes from, where that information comes from, and it comes from the top down. So the radical part of the statement doesn't mean like crazy or radical ideas. It's more radical meaning primordial, and that first idea where the first idea of it came to be. So there again, these statements are meant for meditation. I bring them up at every class, and it's yours to take it further. One way to do a meditation on it would be to chant Sekhet-Maat over and over again, and then take that statement and read it over to yourself, and maybe chant the intelligence again, which is the Sekel Nishrash, over and over, and then see what happens. Just sit with it for a little while. See if you begin to feel that unity and the understanding and the wisdom, that Hokmah and the Bina and Kether manifesting in your own consciousness. That's what all of this is about. A lot of times it seems like minutia, and which a lot of it is. They're keywords and they're things to shift our consciousness, but they're tools more so than anything else. There are ways to shift our consciousness. This is all a map of consciousness, a map of I think it's Lon Milo to talk about the tree of life is like an owner's manual to our conscious mind. And we just learn how to push all these buttons through various paths and emanations. Geburah being the Sephira, the Sephira just translates to emanations, divine emanations, and emanations refers to the numbers. There's all of these things that kind of link one idea to the next. And the way to truly understand it is to delve deep within yourself and delve deep within your mind, and begin to meditate and use these tools that are presented. I present a very basic framework, set of correspondences. Most of them come from 777, 776.5, and Godwin's, and but they're just correspondences that you need to take them inside of yourself to take them to a level of true understanding, of true wisdom, and true unity with the concepts. So pretty cool statement this week, I thought. So justice, fear, might, power, strength, all of these are titles that have been used tied to the idea of Geburah. Geburah translates to strength. But other words have been used to describe this Sephira, or Sephira. It's been Pakad, which is fear, and Deen, which is justice. A lot of titles for this one. And it's because it's got a lot of different faces, you know. It's the sphere of Mars. So Mars is a warring god. Just look at the third chapter in the Book of the Law if you want to see a lot of Geburah in action. A lot of that idea is of might and of power, and of building an enginery of war. Dug it about. But anyways, side note. So mystic number. Quit rambling. The mystic number is 15, and that's purely just adding up the numbers up to the fifth. 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 + 5 will get you to 15, but you'll see 15. You'll see the mystic numbers used in rituals and ceremonies. That's why I include it every week. The color scales for the Sephiroth. In the king scale, the color would be orange, the sphere. In the queen scale, which you see most often represented, is scarlet red. The prince scale would be bright scarlet, and the princess is red flecked black. When you get into the fleckings, kind of funny. It's kind of like thinking of when you put pearl into colors of cars. It's not really as the most prominent part of the color, but it's the undertones. And I think like when you think of pearl in a paint job, it is one of the best way to explain it. So, but I always chuckle when I read the flecked stuff. So. All right, so now some of the attributions, or the minutiae, if you will. A basilic is the animal that is associated, and the basilic is the interesting little creature down on the left. That was what I found in Wikipedia. But Harry Potter had a basilic in his, or in that series. It's a serpent god, and in theory, it can kill with a single glance. So it fits with its warring nature or its, aggressiveness of Geburah to there. There's also a wolf, a bear, and a hawk can all be associated with Geburah. Plants or oaks, or not oaks. It is oak. I was blending it with the next word of nux vomica and nettle. I looked up what nux vomica is, and that was interesting. It's actually called the strychnine plant. And they make a lot of medicines actually out of strychnine. They use it a lot in the making of medicines. So
moderation,
I guess. Yeah. And it makes these little berries, but I would imagine that you should not be eating the berries. And they're weird look. They don't even look like berries. They're kind of like wafery looking. You wouldn't want to eat them. It's like a mushroom growing on a tree type looking thing. It's interesting, but maybe I could be wrong about that too, but I don't think I would want it in my mouth, but hey, your mileage may vary, just like I said at the beginning.
There's a lot of things in the tables of 777 I don't want in my mouth, just saying.
Most definitely. I can agree with you there. And some interesting ones that, that probably wouldn't be that bad. Like we get into this incense of tobacco. That's one of the attributions as well.
Herb of Mars.
Yeah. And you may hear about that later on today in our meditation, possibly. The scourge or the chain is one of the magical weapons. The sword and the spear. And all of those you can kind of associate either through the iron of the steel, the way those tools are utilized, are all different ways you can attribute these to Mars. Let's see. Thank you. Lineal figures or the geomantic intelligence. For this one, it's not. It's a lineal figure, not a geomantic intelligence this week. And the lineal figure is a tesseract, which is like an inverted cube. I don't know a heck of a lot about it, but there's one on your screen on the right-hand side.
And Wikipedia says, in geometry, the tesseract is the four-dimensional analog of the cube. And tesseract is to the cube as the cube is to the square. Just as the surface of the cube consists of 6 square faces, the hypersurface of the tesseract consists of 8 cubical cells. The tesseract is one of the 6 convex regular of 4 polytopes, which sounds crazy, but I think that's like the chemical molecule shape when they talk about like the polytopes.
It very well could be. Like I said,
it's a very interesting cube, but it seems very like elemental in a way, and not like your regular geometric figures.
Well, what I noticed in it is it's like truncated pyramids over and over again, all surrounding a cube, which is kind of cool, especially when you think of the Enochian tablets.
Right.
It's kind of like all of the kind of folded in on itself, basically, making a solid.
I think that's kind of a 3-dimensional attempt at recreating a tesseract. The best way I can explain it as I've understood a tesseract is just, if you look at a cube, it's kind of, you could look at it as one room, say 10 by 10 by 10, for example. To look at a tesseract, each one of the walls would itself be a room. So you would be in a room, and as that wall connects on one corner to another corner, would lead to another completely different room. And it's an impossible thing to represent in a three-dimensional way, where every flat, like you said, like it's what a cube is to a square, and you figure a cube is nothing but squares, so make all those cubes as well, and you've got a mess.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
But yeah, it's
kind of like as a cube within a cube, just like you've got a circle within a circle in the celestial chariot kind of thing.
Mhm. I mean, it'd be kind of like you're drawing here, but each one of those truncated pyramids would actually be a square, a cube in itself.
Really?
But you can't draw that three-dimensionally.
Oh, so like the inside of the cube would also be the same size as the other sides?
Right.
Oh, but to represent it, you can't.
You can't possibly do that in a three-dimensional drawing. You can only kind of, if you want to get crazy with your imagination, maybe you can picture it, but it'll give you a headache if you try for too long.
Right. Hey, and just some weird thing is happening here, and I think it might be Thomas's phone. You may be drawing on our presentation on accident, but just to let you know.
Or we did.
Or I don't know
Is it
how
still
the.
up there?
Well, it said iPhone 11.
Oh,
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but there's X's on our bear, and we didn't mean to do that.
Quit drawing on a bear.
Do you guys see that, or is it just us?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. I don't know how to remove it, so here we go.
All right, cool. Well, we'll keep going. But thank you for that, because I didn't get the Tesseract was. So it's good to have that further explanation and everybody's input on that. Thank you. And the next would be a rose. We don't have a rose picture up there, but specifically it would be a 5-petaled rose, whereas when we saw it before in a couple of different locations, we've seen a rose at Netzach. That was a 7-petaled rose. This one's a 5 rows of 5. In obvious reference to the 5th sphere on the tree of life, Geburah. And then we have the glyphs also of Aries and Scorpio, the alchemical glyphs there. Mars rules Aries by day and Scorpio by night. The title of the grade that if one achieves this state of consciousness, they are given the title of Adeptus Major, 6 = 5. The metal being iron is one of these original metals of the 7 holy planets. 7 holy planets can represent both the outer and the inner planets. But iron is attributed to Mars, so therefore Geburah. Psychologically, it's volition, the action, the will. We're at the very top of the Ruach, at the edge of the Ruach, where we know that it's makes up the level of consciousness of the Ruach, which would include Hesed, Geburah, Tifereth, Netzach, Hod, and a lot of people include Yesod, but Yesod can also be separated out to Nefesh. There again, your mileage may vary on that. And sometimes people include Doth, which is not even a Sephira, but it is a spot on the tree of life that in certain ceremonies, it's there. But anyways, going on. Again, I already talked about Dean and Justice, Picard being fear. And actually, I failed this week to provide you a lot of numbers to go on. I just spelled them out. I didn't even put them on the screen. Sorry about that. Which is fine. I'm sure most don't go and look up the numbers anyway. But if you do, I apologize. So the divine name in Aussie is Elohim Gabor, which can be translated as the might of God or God's mighty. There may be some other ones. Thomas, have you heard it called anything else?
Nothing's coming to mind at the moment.
Cool. All right. Archangel would be Kamael. Planetary angel is Zamael. Heaven of Asium, Heaven of Asia, sorry, is Madim. And that Madim really just translates to the sphere of Mars. The element of fire is associated with Geburah. And yeah, all things 5. So we're going to get into it a little bit, the pentagram and its attributes. It's really strongly represented on the cards when we talk about the cards. So we'll hold off and chat a little bit more about that when we get there. But the Pantheon associated with Geburah. For the Egyptian Pantheon, we've got Horus and Nephthys. Thelemic is Ra-Horquit, which we have a beautiful picture of that was drawn or painted by Kat Leno, an amazing artist, does beautiful paintings, and that is hers of Ra-Horquit. We actually have that print in our hall. It's an amazing painting. Look her up. All of her paintings are amazing. And so, very cool. Greek gods would be Ares and Hades. Roman, Mars. Hindu would be Vishnu, and
I think it's Vishnu Har.
Vishnu Har.
Like together
Okay.
as one, like
I
Rahor
think you're
Kuwait.
right, yes. Okay. All right. So the magical image one may meditate on during their time in wait for their attunement or their advancement to the grade of 6 = 5, could be utilizing this magical image. That's the way, one of the tools that are used in order to shift our consciousness. Those are used in ceremonies for getting ourselves ready for the next step. And just so you know, and this is a mighty warrior in his chariot, armed and crowned. All of the warrior aspects of Geburah represented very strongly, especially in that image. The magical power and mystical state is the vision of power and the vision of justice. And it really, we'll talk about that too. Vanessa didn't, or Soror Luz-y or Vanessa, didn't like the idea of like a lot of the titles of the, didn't equate the titles of the minor arcana so much, because a lot of them seem kind of opposite of that image, and we'll get to that. We're almost 2 slides away. But the vision of power and the vision of justice, always, they can be they can be a little bit violent in nature, or they seem harsh or aggressive, but on the universal scale, they are needed, and those things balance that love and that mercy that's on the other side of the tree of Geburah, or Chesed. And also, just speaking of Geburah and Geburah, you may find that you notice that those 2 words are used in the Kabbalistic cross over and over. It's one of the other tools we utilize to seal the tree of life into our aura, that over and over, and seal ourself in, using power and mercy and the kingdom and thou art. Those are what those translate to. Melkuth, Vegeburah, Vegadula, Leolam, Amen. May that be forever. So.
Hey, Rob, or Dan, sorry, I keep trying to call you Rob today.
It's okay.
I was a little confused earlier, but
Just a point for For any recovering Catholics out there, those are that what you're looking at is, or what you're hearing is actually the Hebrew sources for the very end of the Lord's Prayer, when it's the Hebrew version of "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever, amen." That is literally what we're doing with the Kabbalistic cross, only in the original Hebrew. So if you're ever trying to wonder, how do I keep this straight in my head? If you've got that prayer down, it really helps. Just saying.
Yeah. That's I'm in the recovery community, and that's prayer stated at the end of a lot of most meetings, and I just enjoy it because that part of it, because I get to do a Kabbalistic cross after I've gotten my little bit dose of recovery in there.
I do enjoy. I love being in the rooms, Dan, and just bashing Judeo-Christian culture, and then bam, and then busting out with the Hebrew at the end of it, and everybody's looking at me like, where the fuck did you come from? So that's my thing.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't busted out the Hebrew. I think I will, though. That's a good idea.
It's actually a lot of fun. You will turn some heads really fast, I promise you.
That's a good suggestion. All right. What a beautiful spread this is of spelling Geburah. I highly recommend any Hebrew word, busting out the cards to get a better understanding of what it means to you. No better instrument is that one can play with is the tarot. It'll give you your own understanding very quickly. And even just if it doesn't, it's a nice way to look at some really cool pictures, and those pictures are actually doing alterations at the time of just glancing at them, just to spend a little time with them, spend a little bit of effort getting to know their attributions. So right off the bat, you would start building a word story basically from right to left with that. So you've got the high priestess, you've got subconsciousness, and then you've got the focus of the magus. The magus can be self-consciousness. So the power of subconsciousness directed on a single purpose, one could say. And then you've got the Hierophant, our higher, the HGA, the Holy Guardian Angel, that inner self, the highest aspect of ourself. So we've got all three modes of consciousness, sub, self, and super, represented right off the bat. And then you've got the sun, which represents being reborn, being refreshed, being anew. And then you finish it off with another beauty of the star, which translates, it's a meditative card. It is samadhi, like it is the aspect of the hanged man, and to the nth degree. It's a level of consciousness that has just tied it all together. So, and then also, if you think about the Hebrew words, then another way to look at it is you can look at the letters. One being, so for the high priestess, it would be Gimel. So you've got a camel right there. Then you've got the magus, which is baked. Then you've got a house right there. So you've got to tie a house and a camel together, so give it a little play. Then you've got the Hierophant, which is the Hebrew letter Vav, which is nail. You've got Resh, which is for the sun. That's the face or the countenance of, or even the top of the head. It can be. You've got Kuf and Resh being the face and Kuf being the back of the head. But specifically today, we're talking about Resh. That's the face or the top of the head. And then you have the Hey, and that translates as window. So you've got on either end of it, you're talking house items. You've got the house and you've got a window. You've got a way to put it all together, tie it all together with the nail in the picture. You've got that single point of consciousness of the house and the face, how you present to the world, how you've got how you present is really the best way to.
Yeah, and then when you've got a house, you can park your camel right there.
Or even better yet, you can invite friends over to start out holy days, or to have holy day celebrations out in your yard next to the camel.
Yeah.
The camel, you look in the window and see inside the house.
There
Yeah,
you go,
there you go.
because it is COVID time, so you can't really go in the house. You have to utilize the window, and maybe there'll be something on the wall that's put on with a nail, with a valve. There's I say all these kind of in joking, but that's how you learn to bring these correspondences into your everyday consciousness and really get to use them. So can't say.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Hey, Dan, question for you
Yeah,
before we move on.
no problem.
First of all, thank you for using modern Thelemic correspondences. And is it appropriate to just kind of take a moment and say a little something about the Emperor and the Star right here? I mean, you went with the more current one, but there's also another game you can play. You could make that spread with the Emperor, or you can make that the bonus card of it too. And that actually, I like to play around with adding them as bonus, but I thought I'd just give you a minute to like kind of comment on that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of times there was times where I would do it in a traditional, my roots come from the BOTA, so I would use the BOTA cards in order to spell it, and I would use the Thoth deck.
Right.
But anymore, I've just been using the Thoth, because that is our current tradition, and so what I'm choosing to use on a daily. I even go through my old BOTA lessons, and I utilize the Thoth deck and interchange the cards and get a whole new understanding, a whole new level of interpretation to something I've already learned. But you're right, that in traditional, say the Rider-Waite or the old ones, that would be the Emperor there, because that was changed by Aleister Crowley because of a book he was dictated to, which is the Book of the Law. And in the first chapter, it talks about that Zadi is not the star. And so for a long time, he wrestled with that, and in the end, he found that the Emperor is where he flipped the two keys on the Tree of Life. So he actually changed the position. There's two more keys that were changed in numbering, which would be Lamed, which we just finished, adjustment, and Teth, which would be strength. Those numbers were just changed, but their place on the Tree of Life weren't changed. These were actually flipped on the Tree of Life. And I couldn't tell you the exact reasons. I know it gave him
Yeah.
on Thomas, that'd be cool.
Okay, so it's basically the justification behind this was based on a Kabbalistic treatise written by Frater Audeo. Okay, and literally at the time, two major things occurred. Liber L, Lamed, Liber 30, Liber Alvegus. Like the Book of the Law at that point was considered to be Liber L. And after that treatise, the major change that came through was the Book of the Law was renamed to Liber Al 31. And then also he justified Kabbalistically that statement in Liber Al about Zadi not being the star, and he made the switch, and Crowley approved that, to the point where his entire writing of Liber Aleph was supposed to be a treatise to Frater Audeo as Crowley's kind of heir apparent when he was gone. Although Frater Audeo kind of went batshit crazy, and Crowley wrote him off well before he passed away. But we can credit Frater Audeo for those Kabbalistic changes, and also the change to the name of the Book of the Law as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and you know that I struggled for a while with the utilizing because I love the placement of the star card for after just after the tower key. It seemed to make sense, you know, in its placement there. But I've settled and I enjoy it there. You know, it works for me. The window of the universe.
I'm still getting used to it, Dan.
What's that?
I'm still getting used to it. You're ahead of me by light years. Well, the really strange one is when I stumbled across that discovery. I, being an Aries, was partnered with a Pisces at the time, and so like it was like holy. And then we were going through like some crazy kind of psychological stuff where it's like, wow, our roles really have flipped just like they did on our cards on the Tree of Life. Like it really kind of.
You gotcha.
Are you ready?
I think so.
All right, here we go.
All right, and then also like we said earlier, any 5 thing is going to be attributed to Geburah. So we've got the minor arcana of the tarot, and those are all the 5s right there. So you've got the 5 of Wands, the 5 of Cups, 5 of Swords, and the 5 of Discs. So Absolute, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asya. So the minor arcana being represented here, the 5 of Wands. So that is strife, yes. But that's the world of Atziluth in Geburah being represented. And you'll see there the titles. This is where Vanessa and I were talking earlier about not enjoying the titles because they seem like they are
well, it wasn't
not
that
enjoy, but not.
Well,
go ahead.
Thank you. I was saying that when you're looking at Geburah and you've got this god of war, and then I came across these cards and like seeing these names, it just like for me it didn't represent what, you know, I've just been creating a presentation about Geburah, like all the things that were just like might and strength and martial energy and aggression, like Audeo was saying, and then you come across these names and you're just like, it didn't quite make sense. So I did like your explanation.
Well, I kind of thought that for me, it represents how we view a universal thing that's outside of ourselves, and in our mundane world. Somebody experienced Geburah in their life, could see it as strife. We'll go to the next one. Could see it as disappointment, can see it as defeat, can see it as worry, but that's not necessarily the case of what that power is. But that's how we can see it and understand it, and maybe that's the way we have that experience. But it's always a just way. It's always it can be unbalanced and it can be klipothic, but it is meant, that force needs to be there. It's the positive, it's the negative to the positive, it's the positive to the negative as well. It's just how that element or that part of the universe can be perceived by our micro selves. We need to expand our vision, I think, expand our perception to understand the deeper aspect. But the minor cards are there to help us understand the mundane world and help us to have a better focus for the smaller life. A lot of times they're indicative of our day-to-day, not the universal concepts working behind them, but it's a way we get to experience and understand. Because I agree, it isn't the raw horror kuwait that we so attribute. You know, we're not being disappointed. We're not being worried. We're not being full of strife. We are power. We are might. We are our own savior. But that doesn't mean we won't ever feel these things. We could be, living to our fullest and still, I think we did like that levels of those emotions are needed, and those things kind of drive us to not be that way. We can't have an understanding of certain aspects without
having experience
having experience of that. And it can look mean, it can look
aggressive,
it can look
the Five of Swords looks really aggressive,
flapping the wings in the eyes of Muhammad, and and all of these things. But it's look at it above the abyss, and it's not quite that way. Look at it above a level of personality, and it's not that way. And it's more of just that of that destructive force that needs to occur. Just like how I brought up I liked where the star was a little while ago, right after the tower, that part of the tower card where it's destruction, and it's knocking down the Tower of Babel and or of understanding, and then you get that peaceful bliss afterwards. After that destruction, you have to clear a path in order to build again. You have to make room in order to plant seeds. I mean, what do you do to the ground? You have to dig a hole, you have to put a seed in, you have to till, you have to feed it, all of these things, to that anthill that you just mowed over. It was complete destruction, but for us, it was food for the winter. It was food for, a celebration. It was something.
It was giving back into the earth.
In the long run, that food fell to the ground and fed the newly moved ant colony that you moved over. That's
just part of the cycle.
That is a way to understand something that appears to be malevolent when it really isn't. It is something just as amazing as a newly born, whatever, cuddle bug of some kind, something soft and makes you feel good, just as valid, is the force of something being crushed, and it's just a wonderful cycle. So
yeah, the tree of life is pretty amazing in that way. And doing these path workings, you in my experience anyways, have found that sometimes these things happen, and my earlier versions of these path workings were definitely filled with a lot more strife and defeat and disappointment, and as I've grown into my practice and as a person and in recovery, all those things really these words I don't have fear for these words, but it definitely took me back when I saw them associated with Geburah. It was it kind of helped me kind of place that energy in a different perspective than I was looking at it. So.
Right. And then the other thing to really pay attention to in these cards, also notice the colors. Those are the color scales that we talked about earlier. So utilize these tarot keys are meant to, or tarot tools are meant to be ways to communicate with ourselves, but they're also meant for study guides. I mean, they're amazing little flashcards. You've got so much written on every one of them. To spend a little moment and utilize that as your magical palette or your magical palace, and they're great study guides. There's so much information trapped in a picture. So all right, I think I've babbled on enough about that. Okay. So like I said before, absolutely. Go ahead.
I said, see my comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. So again, we've got Absoluth, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asya, the 4 worlds on the tree of life, represented there. So again, they're great study guides, great ways to get a real understanding of the beautiful system we're working. And that does about wrap it up for today as far as the minutia, all of the correspondences. But what I enjoy is what we're doing now. And at some point, you're going to be asked to present a symbol. And today it's going to be a pentagram. And would you like to do the banishing again?
Sure.
And do you feel up to an invocation of fire as well?
An invocation like the Grippo?
No, for the pentagram.
The greater invoking pentagram of fire.
Or no, we can just do the banishing if you don't feel. I kind of sprung it on you.
Yeah. What is Elohim?
What's that?
Is it Elohim?
Elohim.
Is it?
It's okay. How about we'll just
a Geborah? Because is it active spirit? No. Then it is. I can't remember.
Yeah. So let's just do the banishing.
Sorry.
We're gonna just do the banishing. Sorry for that chatter, everyone.
Trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
I need a little bit more prep than that. I've been practicing a lot of different elemental workings with the pentagrams, so they get a little bit mixed up.
Yeah. My back hurts, so I'm not. All right. So if you need to use the bathroom, if you need to get a drink of water, now would be the time. Or just get situated and enjoy. So Lucy's going to do a banishing for us, and let this banishing wash over your temple space, wash over you personally. Let her banishing transmit out, because what we do is magic, and it is good to create that sacred space. And that's what she's going to do for us.
Melkut, Geburah, Dula, Leolam, Amen. Yodevave. Adonai. Yea. Atah Geborah Leolam Adonai. Before me, Raphael. Behind me, Gabriel. In my right hand, Mikael. In my left hand, Uriel. About me flames the pentagram, and within me shines the 6-rayed star. Ato, I was Melkut, Geburah, Dula, Leolam, Amen.
Thank you. All right. Just kind of take a deep breath. And when you exhale that deep breath, kind of let it out with a sigh. And take another deep one and do the same thing. And then one more. Just let the day's events, the day's concerns just kind of flow out with the breath. Try to turn off what's for dinner. Try to turn off what happened earlier. Just be here now and be focusing on your breath. We're going to begin to count to a count of 4. We're going to inhale for 4. We're going to hold that breath for a count of 4. We're going to exhale for a count of 4. And then we're going to keep our lungs empty for a count of 4. And I'll announce at each transition. Do your best to just, if you can't hold it for that long, if you can't stay without your breath for that long, that's okay. So whatever it is, whatever count you need to do, that's okay. Just try to keep focused on your breath and your breath only. If your mind wanders to something else, which it will, bring it back to the breath. So we're going to begin to a count of 4. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Stay empty for a count of 4. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Stay empty for a count of 4. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Stay empty for a count of 4. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Stay empty for a count of 4. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Stay empty for a count of 4. Now let the counting just fade away. Allow your breath to return to normal where you're not controlling it. But stay focused on the breath. You may repeat the mantra, as the breath goes in, my breath goes in. As you exhale, the breath goes out. The breath goes in. And the breath goes out. The breath goes in. And the breath goes out. The breath goes in. And the breath goes out. Now do this on your own for a few moments. When the mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. Now begin to formulate the Temple of Malkuth. See yourself wearing the symbol of the pentagram around your neck. Entering the temple. Adonai hararetz, Son of Han, Hashim. Watching the Temple of Malkuth formulate, and you see the Archangel Sandalphon, who guides you quickly to the path of Tau, to Yesod, and through Yesod, up the path of Samek, to Tifereth, before rising up the path of Laman. You find yourself standing at the end of an emerald green path of Lamed. Facing the door to the astral Temple of Geburah. A large red door is before you. Carved into the door is the Hebrew letter Gimel, painted in green. Giving the sign of the enter, you step through the door into Geburah. Once inside, you give the sign of silence. The Temple of Geborah is shaped like a pentagon. The walls of the room are covered with red tapestries of medieval knights in various scenes. Knights fighting on horseback, seated at a round table, swearing allegiance to king and country, and gathered around the central pentagram of emerald. The floor of the sanctuary is engraved with a green pentagram as well, and the temple flame burns very bright atop this red central altar. The chamber smells like tobacco. Seeking to announce your presence and call forth the inhabitants of this Sephira, you vibrate the divine name. Elohim Gibor. And the archangel, Hamael. And the order of angels known as the Seraphim. Thick clouds of smoke billow up from an unseen source in the east of the sanctuary. An angelic figure materializes within the clouds to face you across from the altar. It is a robust masculine being, dressed from head to foot in red armor and chain mail. A green pentagram is emblazoned on his breastplate, and a green cape pulled back over his shoulders. Enormous red and green wings outline his head like a halo. Long red and nearly trimmed red beard frame his face. In his right hand, he carries a great sword. Kamael, he who sees God, regards you with his red eyes that seem to bore right through your soul. He addresses you. You have entered the realm of the radical intelligence, the abode of severity and fear. By what symbol dost thou enter herein? You answer, by the symbol of the pentagram which I wear upon my breast. Kamael responds, the pentagram is a powerful emblem of spirit which guides, unites, and dominates the other four elements. It is a worthy symbol for the realm of strength. Facing the archangel across the altar, Kamael directs your attention to the temple flame burning brightly in a bowl carved from ruby. The flame flares suddenly and the room around you becomes translucent. The temple fades from view. It is replaced by a swirling mass of red clouds. Against the backdrop of red clouds, an image comes into view, the flaming sword. You hear the voice of Kamael speaking to you. Be warned, O vainglorious one. The Lord is a man of war, a Lord of armies, and it is his name. It is written, the voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The image of the flaming sword morphs into an image of a serpent coiled around a tau cross. Then there is a flash of light and the image is gone. You find yourself standing in the middle of a vast desert. There is little vegetation of any kind and no visible source of water anywhere. There is only one thing that catches your attention. A metal pole with a T-shaped top has been shoved into the ground. Wrapped around the top of this pole is a serpent made of brass, a peculiar item to find in the middle of the desert. In the distant skies, you notice what appears to be a dark cloud moving rapidly in your direction. As it draws near, you see that it is not a cloud, but rather a group of flying creatures. Several dozen of these creatures stop and hover just over your head. They look like serpents and are colored in every hue of the rainbow. One particularly large red serpent flies near you. The creature has 6 wings and the entire length of his body is covered with eyes. When it speaks, you realize that it is the Archangel of Geburah in his persona as Kamael Seraphiel, leader of the angelic hosts of the 5th Sephira. Kamael speaks. We are the seraphim, the firing serpents, the flaming ones, the order of angels associated with the sphere of Geburah. We are the maintainers of discipline and the rewarders of dedication. Our work is to limit, to define, and to control. Limitation brings unity. We guard the extraordinary and dangerous mysteries concerning the nature of the Klapoth. Our primary duty is one of purification, and we bestow the power of focused consciousness, which brings unity. It is also our duty to enforce the divine will. We are spirits of tough love who teach through pain. The great spiritual motivator. We do not expect you to fully understand or appreciate our methods, just as a child does not understand the reasoning behind a parent's method of discipline and punishment. We are the guardians of the gates of the universe and the guardians of this mystic sphere. We keep far removed from evil and unbalanced. Suddenly, one of the seraphim flies down and bites you on the shoulder. You drop to your knees in agony as the serpent's venom spreads through your body. Fighting back tears of pain, you watch in amazement as something begins to emerge from your wound. A black cloud in the shape of a large spider pulls itself out of your shoulder. It drops on the ground and begins to crawl away. That had to be banished, Kamael tells you, before you could progress any further. The bite wound on your shoulder quickly heals. Soon, it is completely gone. Kamael addresses you once more. It is written, if the pillar of mercy were separated from that of judgment, the vault of the temple would fall. Blessed are they who have entered into the place of darkness and out of the shadow of death. Come forth alive. The sacrifice is complete. Let none resist the will of the gods. Otherwise known as your will. The seraphim begin to roar like lions. It is a deafening sound that causes you to cover your ears with your hands. There is a blinding flash of light and the seraphim are gone. You find yourself standing on an island in the middle of the Nile River Delta. It is noon and the sun in its strength is directly overhead. The heat of its rays beat down mercilessly on your skin. To your right, you see a mighty army of hawks, lions, and winged cobras. As their head is a magnificent god, Horus, the hawk-headed son of Osiris. His golden skin shines in the brilliant sunlight. The god stands in a chariot pulled by sphinxes, and he holds a great spear in his hand. The god is young but well-muscled from years of training as a warrior. His black hawk eyes stare coldly, without emotion, at his opponent on the other side of the island. He is well aware of his place and duty. He is here to fight, to avenge his father's death and restore justice and honor to the kingdom of Egypt. To your left, you see another army, headed by the evil god Set, lord of the howling desert wind. His skin is the color of sour milk, and his hair is the color of blood. After he murdered his brother Osiris, Set seized control of the throne. But Set is a cruel monarch, and under his rule, the people have suffered greatly. Now, overlooking the battlefield, Set's forked tail twitches with agitation. Set will stop at nothing to keep himself in power. With his camel-like snout, he snorts his contempt at the hawk-headed god. Directly in front of you is an assembly of seated figures. a divine tribunal of gods who have gathered to settle the dispute between Horus and Set. The two rival claimants to the throne of Osiris, the gods Re, Atum, Kefra, Hathor, Neith, and Thoth, are them there along with other gods. The tribunal will pass judgment and decide once and for all who is to be king over Egypt and assume the throne vacated when Osiris left the earthly realm to rule over the land of Amenti. Isis and Nephthys are there as well. The goddess Isis has not forgotten how her husband Osiris was foully betrayed and murdered by Set. She will do all that she can to see her son Horus, the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt, is restored to power. Various lesser gods plead the case of Horus to the tribunal. Other gods, followers of the evil one, implore the council to rule in Set's favor. But earlier, the clever Isis had tricked Set into admitting that a direct descendant of Osiris had a greater claim to the throne than anyone else. Weighing all the evidence, the tribunal confers the crown of Egypt on Horus, son of Osiris. The evil god Set is enraged by the decision. He refuses to acknowledge the god's judgment. Then and there, he challenges the young god to hand-to-hand combat. Horus descends from his chariot to meet Set in battle. Horus descends from his chariot to meet Set in the middle of the Colosseum. Set charges him with a terrible cry of fury. When the two come together in the middle of the field, a crack of thunder is heard throughout the two lands. Set is a formidable opponent, but he has grown fat and lazy from years of uncontested rule over the land. Horus, though inexperienced in battle, is young and strong. The hawk-headed god soon has the upper hand. He wrestles Set to the ground when he realizes that he cannot beat Horus in a fair fight. Set throws sand in Horus's eyes. Then the evil one tears out his eyes of the younger gods and buries them. The goddess Hathor takes pity on the wounded Horus. She pours gazelle's milk into the eye sockets to restore his sight. Set tries every deception he can think of to prevail against the son of Osiris. He even pretends to call a truce over a feast and suggests that he and Horus rule Egypt together. When his treachery is discovered, Horus returns the favor, making Set look foolish in the front of the assembly of gods. Then the great battle begins in earnest. The armies of Horus and Set rush forward to meet each other in combat. The struggle between the two gods rages on as well. The two combatants fight savagely, and at one point they transform themselves into bears, biting and swiping at each other's faces. When Horus's troops begin to rout the enemy, Set's followers desert him, turning themselves into crocodiles and hippopotami. They take to the water and flee. But Horus and his followers have lances and chains made of iron. They slay Set's evil army of crocodile and hippopotami in such numbers that the river Nile runs red with blood. And the riverbank is covered with their bodies. The great god Horus changes himself into a lion, tears out the tongues of over 100 of Set's companions, so that their lies will never again offend the ears of the gods. The evil one, seeing the tide of the battle is turning against him, also flees. But Set still has many followers who escape down the river, vowing to take vengeance on the sun god Ra. the head of the divine tribunal who cast judgment in favor of Horus. The hawk-headed god enlists the powers of Thoth, the great god of magic, to help protect the ship of Ra from his enemies. Then Horus takes to the sky and transforms himself into the great sun disk with magnificent wings outstretched on either side. He takes with him two serpent goddesses, Nekhbet and Utchit, the twin cobras. Then Horus flies into the heavens and casts his rays on the Nile with such power that the followers of Set are confused. They turn their weapons against one another, not knowing the difference between friend or foe. Many are slain. Those who remain begin to attack the ship of Ra in their fury, but the army of Horus thrashes them with weapons of iron. Horus, in his guise as the winged sun disk and armed with the burning rays of the midday sun, sets ablaze with spears of light. The charred bodies of Set's evil creatures sink slowly under the waters of the Nile. When Set sees the utter destruction of his companions, he cries out and curses with words such foulness that his ears of all the gods are greatly offended. Then the mighty god Horus wounds the evil one with his glittering spear, pinning him to the ground by the neck. The hawk-headed victor silences Set's foul mouth with a blow to the jaw from his heavy club. In defeat and humiliation, Set is brought back to the tribunal in chains. Horus would have killed him then and there, but the assembly of gods rules against it. Set is not to be destroyed, but forever chained and held captive. His evil will be checked and controlled by the will of the gods, whose ways are just and merciful. After the judgment, Horus returned to the temple of his father Osiris to assume his rightful place as king of Egypt. Accompanied by his mother Isis and her sister Nephthys, he is greeted by throngs of his followers. In victory, he is seated on the throne and takes up the scepter of power. His praises are sung throughout the two lands of Egypt. You hear the joyful hymns. Hail Horus, defender of Ra, son of Osiris, born of divine Isis. Horus that lifteth up his arm, Lord of reverence, who defies Set, who hath reduced the might of Set to silence. A warrior among gods, avenger of Osiris, protector of Egypt. The gods rejoice at the wise counsel judgment of Ra in Atum, who proceedeth over the divine counsel, who hath given his command to Horus, son of Isis, that he should govern Egypt, and that he rear and nourish the multitudes with a strong arm to protect his people and keep them from harm. This is the Lord of the gods. This is the Lord of the universe. This is he whom the winds fear. This is he who has distinguished between the just and the unjust. This is he who, having made voice by his commandment, is Lord of all things, King, ruler, and helper. From his throne, the hawk-headed one speaks. I am he, the strong and immortal fire. I am he, the truth. I am he who hates that evil should be wrought in the world. I am he that lightningeth and thundereth. I am he from whom is the shower of the life of earth. I am he whose mouth ever flameth. I am he, the begetter and the manifester unto the light. I am he, the grace of the world, the heart Girt with a serpent is my name. The vision of Horus fades and you find yourself once again in the astral Temple of Geborah. Facing the Archangel Chamuel across the ruby altar. Spend a few moments speaking with Chamuel. Ask him if there's something that you were to know. If there's a special symbol for you to meditate on this week. Something to take home from your journey. Chamuel continues to address you. Remember well the lessons of this mystic sphere. Keep far removed from the evil and the unbalanced, but always do so with justice, not malice. Avoid the extremes of elitism, oppression, and cruelty. Strengthen and inspire yourself so that you may persevere, and keep your soul unsullied. Keep your abode of the mysteries of the eternal gods. Let your sphere be pure and holy, so you may enter in and become a partaker of the secrets of the light divine. You thank the Archangel Chamuel for his insights into the fearsome realm of Geburah. Gathering yourself and your symbol, you begin to descend down the green path of Lamed to Tifereth, down Samek into Yesod, down the 32nd path of Ta, into the Temple of Malkuth. The Archangel Sandalphon seals the door behind you, facing the portal to the world. Give the sign of the enter and step through, back into the physical realm. Once on the other side, give the sign of silence. We're going to do just a quick banishing, just reciting the words Apopantos Kakadamenos. It's just quickly done by pressing the finger to the lips and forcefully expelling the breath and the words, sweeping your arm back to the right, and stepping slightly back and yell and state, Apopantos kakadaimonos, which is away evil spirits. It's a quick and effective banishing. So take a deep breath. Apopantos kakadaimonos. And allow yourself to come back and wiggle your fingers and take a deep breath and that's it.
If you're on YouTube, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed our class. And we'll see you guys next week.
Love is the law, love under veil. All right.